Protection Commission and the Nigeria Interbank Settlement Systems were federal agencies that were also here yesterday. The technical assistant to the president on economic and financial inclusion was also in the hall. So I'll just run through the highlights of the session yesterday. It's really clear that technology is a significant driver of revenue generation across the states. There's enough evidence to highlight that. And similarly, tech and innovation have led to the capture of previously lost revenues and ease the payment of taxes for citizens. The presentation by the technical assistant to the president underscored the critical role of DPIs with respect to financial inclusion and then transforming Nigeria's socio-economic landscape. His presentation also highlighted the need or emphasized the need for us to drop the high walls of isolation and work better towards better collaboration with all stakeholders. The presentation of NITA highlighted or reinforced the centrality of national standards. So it's important that we should have a national standard, institutional safeguards, and interoperable systems to achieve resilient and citizen-centric DPIs. So it's not just about doing DPIs because we like the word DPIs, but it has to be focused on the citizens that we serve. NABE's presentation showed that digital payments is a powerful enabler, and drives government efficiency, transparency, financial inclusion, and economic participation. During the presentation of NIMC, it was pretty clear with the data that they highlighted that over 120 million Nigerians are currently enrolled in the National Identity Database. And we also agreed that digital identity is a foundational DPI. And the message is was pretty clear. Digital identity is crucial for efficient service delivery, preventing exclusion, and ensuring data for planning. Galaxy Backbone established its very important and pivotal role as the federal government's digital infrastructure and services integrator. They emphasized their readiness to partner with all states with respect to extending digital infrastructure, hosting state-level applications, and then provide training. Again, ensuring that no state is left behind in our journey. For the DPI Readiness Assessment Report that was also presented, it covered 34 states, and that was launched yesterday, and it provided, a comprehensive insight into the maturity of digital identity adoption, interoperable payment systems, data exchange mechanisms, and service delivery platforms across all the states of the Federation. The areas of assessment in that report include the 3 building pillars of enabling environment, building blocks, and delivery of public services. And then 8 sub-pillars of policy, digital skills, ICT infrastructure, identity, payment systems, data sharing initiatives, platforms, sectoral initiatives, and then 27 indicators. If we noted the presentation yesterday, it was quite evident that on the average, Nigerian states have a moderate maturity profile, indicating that there are lots of opportunities for substantial improvements across the 36 states. A significant concentration of the states, however, were in the medium to low categories, and then while 2 states were categorized as high. In the report also, there is a roadmap for each state to guide each subnational in its digital transformation journey. So it wasn't just about saying this is what is on ground. There was also a roadmap that says, okay, this is how to achieve achieve digital transformation. I'll summarize by saying that it was pretty clear that states must begin to play a greater role in DPI implementation. We must champion the integration of NIN into our operations and then invest in enrollment infrastructure and collaborate on tailored state digital identity frameworks to respond to the different varying development needs. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Sheena, for that recap. For our first presentation of the day, we'll be taking Vikram Sharma and Diganta Nayak from MSc to present on DPI readiness of states, the Intelligent Revenue Authority report.
How does this work? Good morning, everyone. I hope everybody had a filling breakfast and is energized for the morning session. So, I am Vikram Sharma from Microsoft Consulting, and here I'm with my colleague Diganta. So we'll be presenting on the ERA tool, the findings and like how we did it and how we conceptualized it. And we'll be joined later by Landry from the NGF team to co-present it with us. So I'll immediately jump into the recap, and I'll not go again through the same slide, but what I'll try to do is just point out two numbers on the slide. The 9.4% low GDP ratio, debt to GDP ratio, and the 65% debt service to revenue ratio. Why I point out those numbers is because yesterday the whole talk was all about DPI. And if DPI is going to be the engine that's going to drive the economy, revenue is going to be its fuel that's going to power it. All right. So these two numbers on the screen are quite worrisome, because 9.4% shows that there's low revenue collection across the country, and it's low as compared not only in the African context, but globally also, because in a healthy GDP ratio, low tax to GDP ratio should be around 15%, and we are at 9.4%. And we need to cover a lot of ground if we need to get going and get the 1 trillion economy that the country aims to hope to achieve. Secondly, the 65% debt to service to revenue ratio also showcases that a lot of the government spending is going to manage the fiscal and for repayments. Okay, so with these two numbers, I set the context that revenue collection is an issue within the country, and we haven't tried to just solve it, but we try to get to the base of the problem and to highlight, like, okay, these are the factors that contribute to it and what needs to be done to get to the ideal state or the milestones that everybody wants to achieve. So moving on to the next slide. Again, just highlighting on what I did on the first slide, if you see very clearly, the revenue collection is skewed across few states. And it's not because everybody is not adopting digitization. Some got digitization early, some has more revenue sources, but whatever gains we could have done has been achieved. So if we need to go on from here, we need to think about a different approach, which is not digitization, but fusing the functional thing, that's the revenue collection, with the DPI approach. Now moving to the next slide. when we were like interacting with different stakeholders and like we were going through a lot of understanding the context of the country, we identified 7 broad issues that we felt were impacting the revenue collection across the country. And if we just bucketed them, and if we just highlight the 7 major ones. So one of them was there's a lot of manual generation of TIN, the tax identification number, manual verification and approval of the compliances that are submitted, lack of defined SOPs and TATs, which impacts like when the process or when the timelines have to be achieved, they are not followed, even though they are mentioned very clearly, and even if they are not mentioned very clearly, it's up to the discretion of the officials. Then there's a lot of human error because manual verification takes place, manual estimation takes place, entitlement calculation takes place, and TCCs that are also finally issued are not completely digitized or automated. And lastly, the manual generation of payment receipts also complicates things because we don't have great audit trails, and even if we have, we are not able to track it back to multiple years or to different beneficiaries. All right. So moving on, the impact of these issues that we identified has been significant, even though they act in silos, but they affect the whole revenue collection of the system. For example, if you're doing manual verification and approval of the tax assessments that have been submitted, there's always a chance for human error or always a chance that you might miscalculate, which leads to distrust in the system or lack of trust. Moreover, if there's TCCs are not automatically generated, you always have to depend upon someone to calculate and ensure that the TCCs are submitted to the final taxpayer and they're able to do the payments. Then there's another thing about payment receipts not being manually, automatically generated and being linked to different digital systems. So what I'm trying to highlight is that no doubt digitization has happened over the years across the different systems, okay, but they don't talk to each other. What they do is they exist in silos, which is complicating the problem further, and that is why the revenue collection that we see right now, one of the factors might be that it's not reaching its maximum or the ideal state that we want it to. Move on. So with this whole problem statement and the understanding that we had initially within the country, what we did was came up with the study along with NGF, that is we called as DDRM, the Digital Domestic Resource Mobilization Workstream, to transform the physical efficiency and understand revenue collection. If I have to say just in layman's terms, the whole idea was that we can't have one approach for the whole country. We need to understand where different states are and how, and what are their systems are, what is their readiness is, what are the capabilities are, and how we can move them to an ideal state or to the state of maximum efficiency. To do this, what we did was not only restrict ourselves to just 1 or 2 payment types. So we did the whole tax value chain where we identified 3 different payment types: person to government, business to government, and government to government sharing also that happens between the authorities. So that we're able to see all the systems, how they are working, all the stakeholders that are involved, what role they are playing, if there's integration or not, what are the gaps and what are the inefficiencies within the whole system. To provide, and then eventually when we have identified all this, what we have done is, in the end, given you a roadmap, like this might be the possible approach or one of the approaches that the states can take to achieve the ideal state of revenue collection. So this has been our approach. When we started working on it, what we did was did the stakeholder consultation. We just didn't start making the tools right away or didn't start right away sending out questionnaires to the states. What we did was engage with multiple stakeholders through the NGF team. We talked with the FIRS and SIR authorities, government players, government ministries, people who from the private sector, and champions who have been working in this sector for very long. Second, once we had their feedback, we incorporated this in the development of the tools with the use of certain principles like public finance principles and DPI. DPI we've talked in detail, but the PFM principles I'd like to highlight, and I'll be doing it in detail when we get into the tool. Post that, when we did the tool and deployed it, we did the scoring and maturity assessments across the states to see what's the level at which they are, if they are ready or not, and broadly divided them into 3 categories. Post that, we did a gap analysis and ranking of the states to understand where each state is lacking and what the steps they need to do or undertake to achieve the final goal. Finally, what we have done is provided them with roadmaps to achieve their final ideal state. So now let's jump into the tool where I talk more about the core PFM principles. Now, when I'm saying about the core PFM principles, what we did was we needed a framework or ideal principles that has been tested across different geographies for evaluating the systems within the country. So what we did in India many years back for expenditure and revenue, that's what we try to do here also. We have broadly 4 principles. Okay, one is what we call as the single source of truth. By this, what we mean is that you need to have one data source within the SIRS or FIS to identify your beneficiaries, so that you're able to track all the data, you're able to point out like the taxpayer, and you're able to talk to multiple digital systems, that's the state authorities or the payment systems, so that there's no discrepancy while identifying or tracking payments or doing audit trails. Second was the observability part. Now, what do I mean by observability is that, okay, digital systems exist, but what happens is there's a lag. The officials who are managing or the tax authority who's managing, they're not able to see everything in real time. And when I mean say is just not the payment part that happens, the compliance part, who gave the approval. So observability is a principle where you see that I'm able to track everything end to end, right from the day the TIN is generated to the assessments that are submitted and whatever the decisions that were taken. Third is the just-in-time strategy. By just-in-time, I mean that whenever there's an event happening within the whole ecosystem, like it might be just for generation of a TIN, or it might be for submission of an assessment, everything happens rule-based, compliance-based, and happens in real time, so that everybody in the whole value chain is able to see what action everybody is taking and what is happening with or with his requests. And demonopolized access is we don't want to restrict users basis the levels or access that they have. Observability can mean different for different things. So by demonopolizing the access, what we trying to achieve is that every official does not spend a lot of time on doing manual tasks and everything. They have digital aids to access different information, and they're able to perform actions in real time or live on the digital system, so that there's traceability, observability, and tracking of everything and everything, every event that happens within the whole ecosystem. So basis these principles, this is how we designed the tool. So if you broadly see, there are 9 indicators we took. 7 are process linked. They are step by step how the tax processes follow. And the last 2 are more on data security and data management that complement the top 7. So what I mean by process is user onboarding is the first step that every authority follows. Compliance verification, validation of the documents that are submitted. Estimation, like what's the tax that's supposed to be paid. Payment validation, then there's one we have added on human resource capacity. If the authorities have the skills and have the people who can perform these actions very well and are able to, I would say, take up the new IT initiatives that are being taken up, such as the DPI approach for enhancing the revenue collection, acknowledgement, and system reminder. So if you see that broadly, they're in the way the whole process works. So we've taken those indicators, the major indicators, and subdivided them into sub-indicators to see what the evaluation level was. So these are the tools, these are the parameters basis which the tool was made, and this is what we have shared with the states to give us their first we had a feedback from different stakeholders, and this is the tool that we shared with the states to fill it and submit to us so that we could do the analysis. And this was the development of the tool and how it was deployed. So the first 6 months, if you see, July 24 to December 24, we focused just on tool development, interacting with different stakeholders, getting feedbacks, and what we saw at the workshop in January was an output of that. The next 6 months was data collection, data verification, data validation, rankings, and everything, so that we could get the final index ready. Plus, when we're doing all this, the data collection methods, we asked different officials in the states, executive chambers in the states, to validate what the data is being submitted. States submitted documents along with what to validate or as compliance that this is the data and this is the proof or the reference document that you can refer to while evaluating. So data collection broadly took place from January to June. So for the data quality measures, just for everybody's understanding, so this followed a 4-step approach. One, verification of the data by the senior officials, where technical or executive or chair officers from the different SIS were helped the NGF team when submitting the data. They authorized it. They said this is our data. And second was the submission of the supporting documents, where we checked the data along with the documents, validated and verified. Third was an independent verification taken up by the NGF team on certain samples. We randomly took samples, took questions across each states and validated if this data is right or not. If there were questions, we checked with the teams in the states, and if there was any verification was needed from our end also, after the states validated, we also used public resources data available to validate everything that was submitted. So the outcome, the tool I have mentioned, like on the principles it was designed, how it was designed, what steps we took for quality measurement, and this is what we're trying to achieve through the tool. So what we're trying to do is divide the states across three broad categories: low, medium, and high, where we say, like supposedly if we say automation, if I take. So if there's low automation or there's just digital steps and you have a lot of manual work, we put it into low. High, when there is very restricted or manual interference and a lot of the work it does is happening on submission of documents and compliance digitally, we say it's a high maturity states. So the output that we're trying to achieve is categorize so that every state knows what journey they need to take to achieve the ideal state and achieve the maximum revenue efficiency they can get from the systems. So Landry, my colleague Landry, we have been supported very wonderfully by him, will take up from the analysis part.
Please, can we give him a round of applause? Thank you very much. So, my job is easy. My job is just to discuss some of the key findings and what we see as challenges across the different transaction and engagement streams. I'd like to just remind us what those three categories and streams are. One is person to government, and the context is, think of individual taxes when you deal with individual taxpayers, right? So when they pay, or it could even be fees, fines. Let's also be clear. Today, you are not called tax authorities. You're called revenue what? Authorities. And that's because you deal with more than tax, right? So this applies not just to tax, but fees, fines, and levies, and those other collections. The other category is business to government. Yes, FRS collects CIT, but businesses remit payee, right, on behalf of their staffs to you. Businesses also pay certain fees to you and also pay certain levies to you. So that is what we look at when we're doing the business to government. Then there's the government to government, which has been a thorny issue. Those are government officials, for example, federal government officials that are working in your state, and federal government has to remit what? Payee as well, right? So let's have that at the back of our mind as we talk about these three streams. The first thing we're going to look at is the first stream, which is what? The individual to government, that is the person to government. And what we've seen is that about 20 states have reached high level of digital maturity, showing very strong performance. 17 are about medium maturity level. And where we saw this strong performance was around, for example, if you look at different sub-indicators we looked at. For example, user onboarding. And we saw that, yes, there are a lot of states, more than half of the states, have digitalized their registration processes, allowing users to initiate and manage their onboarding. That is, they can go online on your website or on your revenue portals and register, fill their names, fill their biodata, and actually register. They don't have to come to the tax office to get that. But however, those who scored I, which you eventually see, which are in the I maturity, are those who have further gone beyond just a biodata form that captures data to ensure integration with the national identity databases, right? So for example, the system automatically validates the identity of that person by checking. So once they put their name, it confirms whether that information links with the name, or at least it can triangulate the information the person is providing. So if I provide Olanrewaju Adugbashile, but then my name is saying Lanre Busayo, it should be able to throw up a conflict there, and that shouldn't go through as a registration, right? So the ability to do that we saw with the states on high performance. And if you don't have it that way, the challenge is you lack a single source of truth, and that's what I meant by integrity. So you think you have taxpayers on your database, but a lot of them are not who they are. Or rather, you have database that you cannot rely on. And that's why when you end up going to 2B, Maitama Unsuma, to look for Larry, you will not find him there, right? Or you cannot translate that information or that information to be able to do a proper compliance strategy. The other part is compliance verification and validation, where we've seen that about 30% of the states are beginning to use a lot of the data coming out of these e-systems to inform their compliance strategies. So being risk-based, right? So that is another thing we've seen common amongst those who are in high maturity, and whilst those in medium maturity are beginning to move towards that direction, but we're seeing that more prevalent with the high maturity states. And this helps with, again, record deduplication and conflict resolution mechanisms differ in automation level. Interestingly, what we've seen is why a lot of states have, for example, inquiry. You go on, you can fill a form, even though the old thing was that you never get a response. Abi? Has anybody ever tried to send something to a government agency and gotten a response? No, right? But we're beginning to have a situation whereby you're having more interactive platforms. But not only that, we actually saw even a case of a state whereby as you can upload a document to further support that complaint. So it's not just filling a form, but you can actually upload a document, and that's helpful. Because if I'm served something I do not understand, that means I can quickly, right, report it to you at very conveniently without having to think of the time it will take me to get my complaint through, and I'm discouraged. So I think that's something to also applaud, and you should all be happy about it for everyone within that category. Tax estimation. Only a few top-tier states practice automated issuance of tax assessment. I think this is the most difficult part, right? So we've seen payment, onboarding, but being able to go through the process whereby IRSs are able to issue electronically, what we've seen is more semi-automated. So maybe at least you're issuing some of the assessment through email, right? But you're getting to a point whereby the system can generate, because a lot of you already have secure login, right? So the person should be able to receive at the time of the month or of the year where that is due, or whenever that assessment is due. They should receive like an email. It should go into that account and they should be able to see. So these are the kind of things that we're seeing with the top tier states who are gravitating towards that. Also is that 70% conduct BOJA through manual or semi-automated processes. Again, this is not surprising. It is very much related to your ability to have accurate information and also to have that interoperability. You cannot, what is best of judgment is your estimate of what this person is due to pay, since the person has not voluntarily complied, right? So everything, you definitely see that correlation, and we'll talk about correlations as we go along. Thank you very much. So on tax payment and validation, which is the most popular, right? A whole lot of states, which you can see from the map. This is showing pretty much the green, high maturity states. You have the yellow, which are the medium maturity states. And then if you ever see a red, that is low. And so you see that for a lot of almost quite a huge chunk of the map is green, showing that payment and validation among states are there. Real-time payment verification and e-receipts. A lot of times when you pay, you get receipts issued immediately, right? So that's very common. We've seen a lot of states also, and this helps to reduce fraud, because again, we've seen that e-payment, that was really what drove a lot of the revolution in revenue increase from 2018, if we all look back. It was the era of e-payment and automation and cashless transaction. But also interesting that we've seen is, because understand that a lot of businesses who are standardized, when they're running through a procurement process, they'll typically say, submit your CAC, submit your what? Tax clearance, certificate, or submit certain things, right? That you are compliant. Now, if as a business, somebody brings a fake document to me, right? How do I know? Now, what we have seen is that a lot of tax authorities, revenue authorities are beginning to take this up and actually provide avenues for you to verify. So, which means as a business, I don't need to walk to LRS, I don't need to walk to Enugu IRS. I can actually come there to the portal and put the reference number of whatever the document, choose the document type, put the reference number, and it can validate. And I think that is something to applaud. And I think you should applaud yourselves. Thank you very much. Yeah. So the other bit as well is acknowledgement and system reminders, and this is also very important. Research has shown that for situations whereby people are nudged, they are likely to respond. But when you don't come to me, I don't hear anything from you, as you might have escaped, right? But just that thing about the reminders coming in, and also the acknowledgement has something to do with customer satisfaction. When someone buys something and you say, thank you for coming to my shop, it's the same ideology anyway, even in revenue management, right? So it's very important, and this is something that it also has to do customer experience journey, even as a taxpayer. So we've seen TCC is fully digital in the third of the state, and that's something very great. Now we're having TCCs issued electronically. Automated reminders for key actions that are available. There's even a state whereby the tax calendar, it updates. If you come there like in different years, it will just automatically update. You see it there, it tells you the due payment by calendar date and things like that. And I think that's impressive. Data security and data management and human resource capacity. Very few states have implemented advanced security protocols, and I think this is where there's still issues. And we're going to share I'm going to share a very blunt example whereby we did go to a state website, a state platform, and if you put in the tin, guess what? It brings out the tins of people. We are one family here with this peer learning. That's a breach. So that tells us about the need that we need to really, really work on what? Privacy, encryption, and ensuring that databases are secure. All right? So, but however, we find very few states around putting emphasis on this encryption. Even some of it to say cannot, suspicious. And that tells you, so you can work with your IT unit to ensure the highest level, or at least a very high standard encryption and security protocol. Even your access control in terms of who has access to what. Have you created that as part of your business process? Who has access to what is also very important. And this, we're talking through the process of the entire digital system that embeds the DPI for Revenue Authority. Absence of dedicated IT support unit is a barrier. You can't give what you don't have. And for how long do you want to outsource? Right? So, you will definitely, and you'll see this at some point in the presentation when we talk about correlation. So, I've just gone through a number of the findings, and I'll just go straight to talking about the recommendations around some of these things, around P2G. And what we're looking at is, what we're advocating is, ensure the use of simple multilingual or like platforms and mobile apps with visual guides for easy taxpayer registration. A number of states are doing quite well on that. Understand that not everybody has a laptop, not everybody will be able to access a web portal. So it's very important that you also give that diversity to, and that's about accessibility. That's part about accessibility. Accessibility also speaks to language. Right? So how is your platform appealing to those who don't speak English or who cannot fully read English? Are we able to put them in other languages? Can they toggle up there and switch? So this is some of the things that also matter. Data integration, how well is it linked to NIN, BVN? Because again, you're able to have, it strengthens your validation. Some of us today, we have almost 3. So you have residency, you have state TIN, you have JTB TIN, then you are still linking to NIN. So again, ensuring that you integrate properly and so we don't have duplication or contradicting information that might affect compliance. Compliance management, create a secure central taxpayer database and single customer account for effective risk-based profiling and compliance. I've talked about that, we've seen this, and a number of you are doing that. It is beyond anybody just going up there, is being able to have that unique experience with you. When you go on LinkedIn and you log in, you're able to have that personalized space, right? Same thing, think of that as what a single customer account is the ability to log in and carry a secure conversation with the revenue authority. You're able to respond to queries, you're able to file, you're able to do all your obligations and do your entire taxpayer journey within that space. And that's what we're talking about here. That way, your risk-based profiling from the back end will be easier because you're able to track, and there's also a proper e-audit trail. Acknowledgement and TCC processes, I already talked about this. I think the only part that you also need to look at is, it's not just about, oh, we issue ETCC. A taxpayer should be able to know that, oh, if I do this now online and I follow this process, within 1 day, my tax TCC will be sent to me within my user account, or within 2 minutes. So that I know that if I don't get it within 2 minutes, then there's something wrong. You understand? And there should be a process to escalate. So there needs to be a defined turnaround time embedded into your e-systems. Adopt predictive analytics. I think this is very easy. Is whereby your for example, your alerts or notification systems, if they are integrated with what I talked about, the single customer account, it is going to be able to see line rate different from Diganta. And it knows that based on the profile that I've set up when I created that, in the notifications that will be sent to me are specific to my profiling, different from Diganta. Because imagine you are sending me, for example, a business notification. It's time to pay the payee of your business, and I'm an individual. What do I do? I just know you don't know anything. I know I can get away with anything because it means you don't even know me. So this is why it's important to get some of this done. Again, convenience. We've been talking about the revolution of using USSD for a while now, because again, you have situations whereby in certain areas networks are not good. So you should be able to permit, you should be able to work to allow or for offline payments, and that's where the USSD, that's the star 234, star 456 kind of code. And this is specifically for low spectrum taxpayers, right? Who, they're paying 200, or for things like levies or fees, whereby they can easily comply without any huge compliance risk. Today you have also mobile money whereby you can use credit to buy and things like that. So it's something you should explore. We have agency banking, right? Which you all know today. There's also system reminders. I'll jump that. Data security, I think I've spoken largely about that. Inclusion, please always think of inclusion when you're doing things, from your awareness drives on digital public infrastructure, to ensure you're not only looking at just the formal sector, but informal sector, and also our youths and women as well. Let's always build that consciousness. On business to government, again, there will be some similarities, so I won't spend much time on the subsequent ones. But we have about 21 states that fall under the digital maturity. And if you compare this to what I said before, you see a deviation. And that shows you the disparity in performance. So you have some states that are probably very strong in individual to government processes. That's really where they focus their strength and their efforts on. But the business bit is not so, right? So that is why you might also see variation in your score. For example, under P2G, then B2G, business to government, and then G, government to government, right? So it's a case of actually reflecting and seeing how you can also improve those other areas. We have about 15 states classified under digital maturity. So overall, if you look at the combination of the two, we have very, very large number of states not doing bad. So one state that falls under only one state falls under the low maturity. But like I said, you'll notice you are not low under the P2G. So what this just tells you is a reflection to think back, look at how you can improve also your business to government. What are you doing right on the P2G that you should carry over to the, and we can have those bilateral conversations with you. User onboarding, like I said, single source of truth. If, for example, a lot of states are now integrating CAC, but not all. So CAC is like the way you have NIN, right? For individuals, CAC is your single source of truth in terms of the business, and that's the RC number, right? How do you integrate that? How do you ensure you use that to also support your validation of that? And how do you also use it in the compliance process? Because you can pull those data, but again, this requires a bit of collaboration with some of these federal agencies. Interoperability, again, BVN, NIN, and CAC. And I must say again, even with the MDAs, some of you might say, oh, but we're sharing data, or we're interoperable with our land bureau. Remember, when we're checking this, it's not just about you with one MDA. Do you understand? It's about DPI is looking at the ecosystem. That is what it is. So this is just saying, if you're already doing that, move and increase, let it cover the spectrum. And that's where you want to work towards. Yes. So most of the systems support, again, upload forms and document. For example, I even forgot to mention, there's also a state whereby when you're registered as a taxpayer, you can actually capture yourself. It has that functionality. You can capture yourself. You can even upload your picture. And that again adds to what? The verification process. And I think that's also something to applaud. If you can please just give yourself a round of applause for that. Compliance verification and validation. 16 states have implemented a robust digital system to verify business tax filing and assessment, which again helps to address possibility of duplication and also improve accuracy as well. Tax estimation, which again, like I said, is usually the very much difficult bit because it has to do with a lot of back-end risk-based analysis and calculation. And this invariably will also affect BOJA as well as best of judgment assessment. On tax payment, we have about 20 states that also create, when you look at their payment system, it also allows you to make those obligations that are tied to businesses as well. And we have several online options. Again, this is about accessibility speaks to diversity in the opportunities I have, right? Opportunities I have. Don't have platforms that are very limiting. So some have Remita, they also integrate with QuickTel. I'm not telling you what vendor to use. That's your choice. But what we are saying is create those span of opportunities, allow for USSD so that those who cannot also easily access the internet can also do some of these offline processes. Communication of payment reference numbers and payment confirmation, it's always good because that way you really know what is genuine. If someone brings a PS to me and claims he's working for the IRS and I don't get a receipt, then I should be worried. I should be worried. So also talking about system reminders, very similar to what I discussed before, but flip it aside around and think of this from the perspective of a business to government obligation or engagement or transaction. Data security, I cannot emphasize this, two-factor authentication, very beautiful. There were some where we tried, when you want to just try and create in, and it will tell you, okay, put in your email. It sends a notification to your email address. And for email address, you have to use that code, then come back to the website. That is part of what we are talking about. It ensures and make sure that you're actually dealing with a real person. Make sure you're dealing with the right person. All right? And so those are the kind of things we're talking about. It shouldn't be as easy as you just put anything and then thereabout you are registered, you're in the database. You have a lot of almost non-real people on your database. Not all states are there to national interoperability frameworks, data formats and standard. And this is one of the reasons why there's an issue. And I don't need to overflow this. That's one of the reasons why even to align with JTB, team database, is a problem. Because again, the way our data is structured, well, some people's data is structured, is different from this. And it just speaks to, again, having that standard format that can allow, because interoperability will not just happen, it has to align. Right? The API is not just as simple as plug and play. There's some cleaning up that needs to be done. So there's a need to ensure that we're able to service a lot of interoperability points as well. Every MD should be able to check, oh, you want to do this service. And that's why other countries or other jurisdictions or some states might work better than the other, is that you cannot escape because every point you go to want to access government service, a lot of government services, they can track back to your compliance. Right? And I know a state that also, I remember my dad retired some years back, and he wanted to regularize, and they asked him that, from the Land Bureau, and they were able to pull his tax document to check whether it was compliant. And that's what we're talking about. You didn't need to start going to the IRS to do that. It was the Land Bureau was able to check that and ensure and see compliance. So it's very important about interoperability. Again, the recommendations, I would say, the ones I won't repeat, a lot of the other ones I said apply, but I'll just emphasize on some new ones that kind of come in. Because again, what we are seeing is there's a lot of more emphasis on individual, and that's understandable because a lot of state taxes or obligations are individual focused. But then there's still some business bits to it. So ensuring that your workflows also carry some of the business processes that deal with businesses, expanding those digitalization workflows to also do that. So it's very important because, again, we were also seeing duplications. Some IRS had 2 websites, 3 websites. As a taxpayer, I am confused. Which is which? And surprisingly, out of the 3, 2 have payment portals. So how am I sure which to pay to? So this is some of the issues. You need to consolidate all of that into one, ensure there's just one workflow backing that business process, and people can access through one system. I will just also talk about remote onboarding. Sometimes it's not easy. Not everybody can self journey themselves through your website. So sometimes when you put a video guidance or some of those things will also help in facilitating remote onboarding. E-filing, I think I've talked about that, grievance resolution as well. Human resource, it's very, very important. I cannot overemphasize. You cannot give what you don't have. And again, outsourcing is not bad, but you should have an exit plan. You should have an exit plan from the moment you get into it. You should have an exit plan or a transition plan to ensure that the most fundamental bit is managed over the long time and with your capacity. G2G, again, this is probably the most troublesome. That's why we keep hearing back duty, and all of these issues. And it's also very surprising because that should be the easiest. It should be the easiest because if we can understand if taxpayer individuals are trying to evade and you have to chase, but when it's government to government, that is, and but again, it's also because a lot of systems are not integrated. You don't have a view of some of these things, and like I said, the focus we've seen for a lot of your digitalization to support that DPI infrastructure has been very focused on individual taxpayer compliance. And that is where you need to expand. So 20 states fell in the medium maturity band, 16. So you can see the numbers were reversed, right? 20 states fell in the medium band, highlighting very basic digital systems. Yes, we see whereby you can do payments, you can do government payments. But if you check registration, there's no this thing for you to register as a government MDA or something. You either see most times individual or corporate. So if I'm a government MDA, I want to file. That means I can't use that system. I can't even create some of those things. One of the states, again, was in low maturity, and we looked at a couple of indicators. Again, user onboarding. We also looked at interoperability around those issues, and again, we looked at how easy was it to ensure verification and validation, leveraging those single source of truth, leveraging that accuracy and integrity of the data you were getting, which can then support Boja as well. Again, the map you can see was way yellow here. Than what you've been seeing previously. Payment, like I said, we've seen that, but the challenge, like I pointed out, is unlike other transactions whereby it works from being a registered taxpayer all the way to actually remitting. You don't have that journey map, which is a challenge. Bayelsa and Lagos have digitalized their TC application and insurance in this regard, and that you also have a lot, like I said, a lot of other states, Niger, Kaduna, Borno, Kano, and that have all performed again across different Kwara, Kogi, across the different spectrums I said, B2G. So everybody had somewhere where they had some kind of strength. The thing here is, how do you, in those areas, you do not have those strengths or you haven't gotten it right, how can you work to improve those areas? Recommendations, like I said, are very similar. The only difference is carrying over the context to think of the kind of taxpayer you're dealing with. I want to point to one though, is also the automatic calculation of when you're doing your filing. Again, not everybody is literate. Not everybody has that time. What you want to do is simplify the process for the taxpayer. There was actually a state whereby when you were trying to do the filing, you just need to start putting the things and it begins to auto-calculate. And eventually, when you're done, you finalize it and can take it to payment. Again, imagine that and imagine the process you have in IRS. And that tells you where you can also go to. So, but the reason why they can do that is everything is taxable. So, for example, you want to pay and then you choose Ministry of Land. Automatically brings out what? The eligible things that fall under Ministry of Land. The reason why they can do that is because they have already mapped what? The things from Ministry of Land into the system. They've mapped the various tax journey or revenue payment journeys that you can make also under the Ministry of Health or so it's very easy. Once you pick the ministry, it gives you, and then you pick the one and some of those things. And even in the case of your PIT, it can also help you with that. So that's what we are talking about. This just gives you a snapshot of where states are. Again, this snapshot is not showing. Remember when I started by showing the individual transaction categories. Individual to government, business to government, government to government. This snapshot is showing overall performance. So you might have scored low, right, under B2G, but scored high under P2G, person to government. But if you score low over 2, then that kind of affects your average, right? So this is just showing an overall picture. But in solving your problems, you need to do a proper diagnosis. You need to go back and check where your strengths were under the individual category so that you can really know what exactly you're moving the needle on. All right? And just a quick highlight to remind all of us, looking at this from an holistic perspective, is that there were 18 states that scored above 70%, showing a strong digital maturity in tax administration. States like Bayelsa, Borno, Gombe, Delta, Lagos, Ebonyi, Niger, and all of them were there. They all had good data onboarding, seamless ID payment integration, automated compliance systems. Above half of the states have medium maturity digital systems, again reflecting partial integration. So the question here, I remember what my colleague said yesterday, you can be doing digitalization. It does not mean you have translated that to a proper DPI structure. And we need to be clear on that. So that your things are automated does not mean, because you don't have things like that, those integration, interoperability, right, and cross-functionality, right, and all of those other DPI bits, then you're going to score low, right? So it's not just about digitalization. Top performers, like I said, excel in digital onboarding, data security, analytics. There's even a state that I did see that put up their recognition as a registered data controller. How many IRSs here are registered data controllers? How many? And it's fine. Like I said, what is important is you recognize the need to get on board of that, and also you be able to prove that confidence to the users, to the taxpayers, that yes, their data are really safe. Their data are really safe. And that's very important. So please, and I believe the Joint Tax Board is engaging on that currently, based on some conversations we've had. So Benue, Yobe, Katsina, Anambra, Osun do have some work to do. And like I said, we would be very much happy to work with every single state that wants to speak bilaterally to talk about their own specific movement of how can we move to the next step. We spent a lot of money on digitalization. We thought we were there. What are we getting wrong? And we're happy to have those conversations with you. Level of digitalization is uneven, which is what we have all seen. Correlation, I'll just go very fast on this, is just to kind of show you the kind of things we were seeing in terms of, for example, we saw a high correlation between compliance and payment validation. It kind of makes sense, it's intuitive, right? If you have a strong compliance system that is supported, then most likely payment validation would also be easy, because it's more or less like using the same data systems to do that. It's just to ensure that your interoperability of that data use and push and call of the data is all done. We saw a medium correlation between user onboarding. That user onboarding was strongly linked to data management. And again, that is understandable. And I talked about how we've seen quite a number of you have started adopting those secure customer accounts. Some of this thing, nobody can you can't carry out anything without logging in. And that talks about your caution and interest in ensuring that data integrity and safety is there. States with effective system reminders also see higher compliance verification. And it's kind of, like I said, it's intuitive. If you are owing somebody money, if you are owing somebody money and the person doesn't even contact you for 2 years, will you probably remember returning the money? Huh? You will return everything. Are you sure? And on time? All right. Anyway, what we're saying is human behavior is that a reminder would definitely help. A reminder would definitely help. Onboarding improvements support better compliance verification, and I think that makes sense as well. If you look at it, if you have a very strong and reliable taxpayer database, you can definitely carry out a very strong compliance strategy. It's common sense. So that is why, if you look at even the methodology, onboarding was given a very high weight. Because the moment you get it wrong there, it just cascades all the way, right? So it's very, very important. Low correlation is that, you can have automation, does not mean that you have good data security. Yes, and I give a practical example. You can have good automation, but doesn't mean that you have a very vibrant ICT unit. I think that is very clear. If you are outsourcing everything, and you could have a great website, but it's just managed all outside, doesn't mean that and that's what we saw. Like, if you see some with great website, but you don't have the digital staff, the required IT staff that can push that system, meaning that if that vendor goes tomorrow, everything will probably fall apart. So we didn't see that correlation, that strong correlation between the two. On business to government, we did see some correlation again, very similar. Between onboarding and data security, we saw a medium correlation between business onboarding and then compliance checks. And I think, remember what I said, we found a case that you had those compliance, those integration we need, but when it came to the business, there was no integration with CAC, right? But then they can register online, right? But the problem is, if that happens, if those validation processes and integrations are not there, how can you really push compliance through the system? Your system cannot even do a proper risk profiling, because that means it cannot flag, right? On G2G, on government to government, again, this is a very, very concerning area, and it's something that would definitely require you looking into it more closely, and also ensuring that it might require some system adjustments to the back-end business process that you've integrated with it. Because again, what we have found is it's almost non-existent in a lot of cases. It's almost non-existent. And I'll call on my colleague Diganta to speak to the action plan, and after that, we'll go into a very interesting panel session whereby you also hear from some of your colleagues who then discuss their own experiences trying to digitalize and move in ensuring a better digital public infrastructure for the Revenue Authority as a player. Thank you.
Thanks, Landy and Vikram. So basically, based on our analysis, so we have devised a three-phase approach to help the states to move from low level of maturity to the medium level, from medium level to the high maturity level, and from high to the ideal state. So in the first phase, what we focus is on the immediate reforms that focuses on implementing the rapid kickstart digital transformation. So here what we think is the states need to identify the gaps that are existing within the system in the first phase, and then try to work upon it. In the second phase, what we focus is on the solutions that are meant for the short to medium term. And these reforms might take you around 3 to 12 months. In this phase, we focus on scaling up the digital services that we have already implemented in the states, improving the interoperability between the different agencies, and kickstarting the transitions to data-driven decision making. So now what we see is it's mostly manual. So where you focus on all the information that you have received, you go through the information, you analyze it, and then you approve it. But once you implement a system-based, rule-based processing, that will help you to analyze the information on its own based on the rules and the data points that you have defined. And based on that, it will be easier for the authorities to take the decisions. And in the final phase, what we focus is on the long-term defense. This phase involves implementing advanced solutions and is dedicated to achieving system-wide sustainable digital maturity. So what we focus on here is the states who have already achieved a certain level of maturity. These states can focus on advancing their system, implementing advanced digital analytics, implementing real-time integration with other systems for better data management and monitoring. So here we propose an action plan for the low maturity states. In the first phase, they should start focusing on the foundational activities like launch simple mobile optimized registration portal for citizens and business partners, partner with NIMC for NIN enrollment, use local media and agents to expand digital revenue administration processes. So, and why we have focused also on use of local media and agents, because yesterday we could see that a majority of our population in Nigeria will be within the younger population, will be not very much acquainted with the taxation system. So, a communication campaign is required for them to be aware of what the taxation system is and how they should go ahead with filing the taxes. Then list all the revenue obligations, begin online business registration and payment with e-receipts, and pilot digital reporting in key agencies. Let's say land revenue is one of the main focus areas, so we can start piloting in those agencies to see if a real-time, if the business registration will help in getting those tax filings in real time. In phase 2, we focus on scaling up and integrating with other systems like the ID systems, TIN, BVN for secure and unique taxpayer profiles. In the phase 2 also we propose to enable multiple payment options like POS, wallets, e-wallets and USSD, and send automated reminders to the businesses and the individual taxpayers to file their tax on time. The third is the integrated registration, payment, compliance and certificate downloads, allow batch filing for the consultant. So big businesses might have a lot of documents that needs to be filed or needs to be submitted onto the system. So the system should have the provision to allow those businesses to upload multiple documents at one go. And in phase 2 also we propose to mandate digital reporting for all revenue collecting MDAs, automate analytics and backup, and appoint digital leads in each agencies. In phase 3, we focus on achieving the system maturity. Here it requires all NIN linkages for all taxpayers and remote onboarding, digital TCC issuance with risk flagging, use of advanced analytics for proactive compliance, integrate state and federal revenue administration systems, allow fintech and third parties to provide payment options to in various locations where government cannot provide those digital payment solutions. For the medium maturity states, in the first phase, we focus on consolidating and quick scaling up. So in the medium maturity states have already achieved certain level of digitization, and through focusing on certain aspects, they can scale up their the system to achieve a better output. So here we focus on integrating businesses and revenue administration platform with CAC, NIN and major payment systems, automate registration alerts, compliance reminders and digital receipts across taxpayers and business channels. In phase 2, we focus on deep integration and automation, make digital channels default for all revenue, businesses and government payments, deploy automated reminders, instant digital certificate generation and enable multi-factor authentications. So like Landy mentioned, two-factor authentication will help you ensure that you are dealing with the right person and you are getting the right information. In phase 2, we also focus on building a single window portal for and streamlining the reporting with API integration. In phase 3, we focus on real-time data-driven decision making. So the state should focus on making digital channels mandatory for all revenue, businesses and government payments, deploy automated reminder, instant digital certificate generation and enable multi-factor authentication for all tax filing and tax payments. And they should roll out a real-time role-based access to revenue authorities. In the third phase, this is for the high maturity states which have already achieved a certain, which have already achieved the maximum level of maturity within their digital systems. For them to move to the ideal state, they need to work upon all those factors which are lagging, all the indicators that are lagging behind. So here they should mandate NIN and TIN integration and deduplicate all taxpayer databases, issued instant digital TCCs and receipts, and configure reminders for all users. Biometric integration and facial face-off for sensitive services could also be implemented. Fully digitized business onboarding processes with CAC and NIN checks, tamper-proof certificates, instant bank reconciliation, and sectoral dashboards. In phase 2, we propose to use predictive analysis and inclusive innovation, enable single sign-on with national IDs, automate compliance reminders, and use ML machine learning for targeted taxpayer interventions. Ensure 100% new registration with NIN biometrics and mass onboard excluded groups. Integrate portal with national business registries, automate compliance certificates, and enforce risk profiling. So risk profiling will help you to identify those taxpayers who are failing to file their tax on time or who are not filing their taxes. Deploy executive dashboards for real-time MDA monitoring. This will help the government agencies to track the revenue sources. In phase 3, we propose continuous excellence and global benchmarking. So here we try to incorporate the global standards into our systems. So implement 24/7 multi-language fully accessible digital services, offer real-time self-service taxpayer business dashboards, implement biometric and multi-factor authentication for sensitive tasks, use AI or machine learning for anomaly detection, smart nudges, and automated grievance redressal, operate entirely on secure cloud-based platforms with global certification and real-time reporting for leadership.
All right, thank you very much, Diganta. I'll just have Vikram. Please let's give him a round of applause. I'll have Vikram close out on some comments and then we'll hand down.
Thank you, Andre and Diganta. So I just want to say that from the index, what we realized is that the good part is that there's no states in the low maturity category. Okay, it's a good thing, because what we understand very clearly is that all revenue authorities have their digital systems in place. Whatever might be the maturity level, they are performing that function. Okay, but what I'm trying to highlight is that now that we should stop thinking the whole problem as such, or in fragmented, or try to solve one problem at a time. We should think it as an ecosystem problem, and there comes the DPI approach, and along with that the DPFM principles, where I believe, for example, if we need to increase the revenue, we need to integrate our ID databases. We need to broaden the base so that the revenue collection can go up. Secondly, what we need to do is move away from having fragmented systems. We should move into workflows that are integrated, so that you as officials, or you who are managing the systems, can have end-to-end observability of what is going on. And you can move to other tasks within the ecosystem rather than just focusing on if the timelines have been met, or if the, I would say, the workflow is moving on, or if the compliance has been met. So I believe if you move to a whole workflow automated system and integrate the whole ecosystem approach, I think so it will help you get there and will increase the revenue. Third, what I want to say is, like, learning from the India example is that 15 years ago, we also started with the ID journey. We never thought about fusing when we started out with our tax ID or our functional ID out there. But eventually we did, and the gains have been immense. Okay. So we've been able to integrate both the tax ID and the national ID. We are able to now track like whatever we are doing, or the spending that the tax authorities are able to do in real time. The tax filing has become very, very smooth. And what all of this has done, and even we are able to open up new use cases, like link it with the like the share market or the demat accounts, and open up other avenues and aspects. But what's the most important thing, like when the functional ID and the national ID got merged, was that there was a trust in the system. Okay, both from the benefit from the taxpayer and from the authorities. And I think so that's the approach that we need to take. So that's why in the last I just like to say that is, take DPI is as an ecosystem way, because whatever digitization has achieved for a lot of the states for you already. So go to the next level. It's important you take DPI as an approach and try to fuse it with the PFM principles that we showcased. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll proceed to the panel session very quickly. And after that, we'll also trade open for questions and answers and comments and contributions from the crowd. Thank you very much. I'll just like the following persons to please join me on stage for this interactive panel session. I'd like the Executive Chairman of Enugu Internal Revenue Service, Mr. Emmanuel Namani to please join me on stage. Thank you. Please let's appreciate our colleagues. I also like to call on the Executive Chairman of Gombe State Internal Revenue Service, Aisha Adamu. Thank you very much, Madam. And also, we would like to call Bayelsa State Executive Chairman, Mr. Dr. Daniel, to please join us on stage. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. And also, I'd like to also call on I'd like to also call on Dr. Abdusalam with the ICT, Dr. Abdusalam to please join me on stage. Dr. Abdusalam, thank you very much. Please let's appreciate him. All right. So we've all had a very, very nice conversation about the digital journey and how this is also being connected to an ecosystem and all of government approach that is supported by these efforts. But I'd just like to discuss some unique instances and what your thoughts are in terms of the benefit, the challenges. So I'll be throwing some questions to some of you on the stage to also share your thoughts. And I'd like to start with the executive. Citizens' trust is a currency that we don't have, that we have in deficit, right? There's suspicion, there's mistrust, and there's a lot of clamor for various development. Given the enormous data, right, that runs through your system, in terms of from the onboarding, which takes a lot of the bio data and a lot of this, even from the payment side of things. And also, the other day on Twitter, I don't know, on the social media, someone put up that they found their immigration registration, and I think a lot of people found it. Someone sent it to him or her, so via WhatsApp or something, that they found the person's NIN registration full completed, being used to sell. So you can just imagine, and that alone being spread on social media already creates apathy to perhaps want to re-engage, or even people who have not engaged to want to engage, especially if you feel the need to, So it's very important. This is sensitive data that you really collect. What frameworks, systems, or processes do you currently have designed in your IRS to reassure citizens, reassure taxpayers that the data they transmit with you, the information transmit with you, is safe, especially within your digital system? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And good morning to all of us. Let me set the pace in Enugu State. When the governor, or Peter Nibisimba, assumed office, he made a statement that he doesn't want to see any paper on his table. And again, that he doesn't want any cash to be collected in terms of revenue in the state. Because of that statement, he engaged one Google staff that has been a high impact staff of Google, one Mr. Engineer Ostonoma. And we did what we call landscape mapping for technology in Enugu State. So what that led us to is that today the government has what we call e-governance platform that cannot be compared in this part of the world, where the governor doesn't even come or ask you. You have to send your reports through the platform. The governor can refer your report to anybody within the platform, and follow-up can be monitored. So he doesn't want any, if you submit any paper to him, he will query you. Starting from that, he also said he wants to connect the entire state. He wants to see everybody in the state. Then he built what we call command and control center. That when you enter Enugu, if you want to know anywhere you entered in Enugu, from your entering to Enugu to your departure, we can point your face, the place you visited, through digitalized CCTV. And he now says that the revenue should not be collected cash. So what do we do? So we need to start building a system with what we call Knowledge. became our service provider. And in that knowledge, I started asking questions. I was asking Lagos, I was asking Kano. These are people who have been in the system before I joined.
Okay.
So the issue of Lagos was consistent in advising me, do this, do this. The Kano, Dr. Zaid, was also very interested in ensuring that we build a system that worked. So I, coming from the bank and being a lead in RPA, automation of the bank system, I also brought in my own idea. Then PwC came to support me. The team lead, tax lead of PwC supported me from inception. So what we did was to build a system.
Okay.
Building this system required that we should build enumeration, because we know that tax starts with enumeration, which is registering taxpayers. So we built it. We called JTB. How do we integrate? How do we make this registration self-service?
And how do you make it secure?
How we make security is also there. So we have to integrate with JTB in team registration. We also needed to ensure that when you register, that is secured. So in doing that, our system need to be integrated, because we have to open our system for integration with all the payment gateways. So we have to still tell InterSwitch, you have been there for 12 years, we need to expand it. So InterSwitch said, okay, no problem. So we brought in Remitter, brought in eTransact, brought in UPS, brought in MoneyPoint. In as much as you can collect our revenue and report it 3 times, come and do that.
So how do you for all of this data, because from what you say, there's a lot of data flowing in within your IRS, in terms of those who have access to this data, in terms of how you transmit this data, what specific frameworks or processes have you put in place to ensure this is done securely?
What we have done is that we did what we call user mapping, what we call access control. That access control, we engage young guys into the IT department, and we have a team of governors that is into IT, and they are the one designing most of our system. So they build access control. You cannot see what is not designated to you. So for most of the staff, for me, what I can see everything, I can query everything in the system. Governor can see it, Commissioner for Finance can see it, the Accountant General can see it. But when it comes to other staff, the other staff, what they can see is what belongs to them. For somebody who is in a PIT, he can only see the information regarding collection on PIT. He can only see information about registering somebody who wants to register in PIT. For somebody in withholding tax, he can only see information that has to do with withholding tax. Okay. So that access control actually guided our operation in those areas. And then we have what we call the data backup. So for all this, because we also burnt our fingers when we came in, we said, the other provider cannot serve the state now. So we had to bring in another provider, and we lost most of the data. So for that, we said, okay, we cannot go through that next time. So we have to buy a space in AWS, the cloud, and every day we are paying in dollars to store our huge data that we are collecting on a daily basis.
Chair, I mean, this shows that you've made quite a lot of investment, right, in digitalization. So I would like you to, as a way to end, I would like you to just tell us, in terms of the taxpayer services that are supported by digitalized system, maybe registration, maybe payment, maybe even be seamless interaction or grievance redressment. Which one would you say, for you as the chairman, has been the most impactful? And perhaps think also for which one you feel you have not gotten the potential, that benefit you were hoping for, and why you think that might be the case. So the first one, remember, is which has yielded you the most benefit of each of the component of taxpayer services that has been supported by a digital system.
I think payment. Payment has been the most impactful. Expanding the payment gateway to 6, allowing people to pay either using POS, online, in-branch, and even USSD. You can pay using USSD from any of our platform. and also Money Point that has over 19,000 agents in Enugu State. Is also a massive gain for us to have adopted that. One other area that I can tell you that we may not have maximized the utilization was our GIS. We bought in a GIS, very expensive GIS platform that allows us to map all the buildings in Enugu State, showing us we have over 800,000 buildings in the state, and allowing us to generate demand notice for everybody to pay. And that system also has what we call self-service. Anybody demand notice and pay. We have not actually optimized taxpayers going into the platform to generate their demand notice. So every day you see thousands of people coming to office to come and collect their demand notice and also going to do payment. That is an area we think that investment has not yielded the best of our results.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Please, can we appreciate the Chairman? Thank you. I would like to go to the Executive Chairman of Gombe IRS, Madam. You have a payment system, right, which we see to be very interesting. As again, I think I give an example, and you are one of those states that was along that line in terms of how it's integrated with the various MDA revenue points, right? So basically, when you select the MDA, it does a drop down, and then you can go into pick the one that applies and automatically connects. This system is there, and it must have cost you again investment, right? In terms of patronage and use, because I trust you see the usage compared to the old system of people going physically to the bank or coming to the IRS, how would you rate the ratio? So ratio of people using the system, so if you have 1,000 people in your database, of that 1,000, what's the percentage of people that probably are now using the system and percentage of people that are still visiting? How have you seen that improve? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Aisha Adamu. I'm the Executive Chairman, Gombe Internal Revenue Service. I would like to take you a bit on our digital transformation journey. This was a journey we started last year in May 2024 when I came on board. When I came on board, we inherited a consultant-based system, which was just a payment system. So for the Gombe Internal Revenue Service, we had no tax register, we had no tax administration system. And the first thing we did was to dust off all the reports we had in the service. And one of the reports was the ICT strategy developed by the state to state for Gombe. And we embarked upon implementing that strategy. When I met His Excellency, he mentioned 3 major objectives we should try and achieve by this project. 1, to build a system that will be owned, managed, and operated by the state due to the several bad experiences we've had with consultants. Secondly, to build a system that will promote efficiency, both in terms of expenditure and then the revenue of the state. And lastly, to see how we can improve on good governance through transparency, accountability, and then improvement in taxpayer services. So with glory to God, by the end of 3 or 4 months, we were able to build such a robust system, following which we also integrated with our service providers, the various service providers, and then we also proceeded to integrate with some of the revenue generating agencies in the state. For most of the agencies in our state, we noticed that they do not have any IT infrastructure. We picked up on the judiciary and automated their processes. And that was a turnaround for the state. We moved from generating less than ₦1 million in a month to generating over 30 million naira in a month. We also moved to one of the social services, which is the water board, and then the intercity. And we saw influx of revenue to the state. When we talk about the statistics, for us in Gombe, what we noticed is the self-service medium has greatly improved because now we have a system that we can benchmark with when we started and as at today. So we saw a migration towards self-service by over 50% of our taxpayer services, depending on the sector. Secondly, another efficiency we noticed, which will also help us measure the migration in terms of the medium of payment, is our own stock replenishment of physical receipts. So we notice very low replenishment requests from our stores, because now that we have this self-service hub, self-service medium, a lot of people who pay their taxes get their receipts sent to their emails and also to their phones. So they do not require physical receipt. So we'll say that in terms of migration from the walk-in
Yes.
to the online platform we have, we've seen over 50%.
I mean that's been a very interesting journey, and I'm sure as that journey was going on, you probably learned some things, some hard truths, and some things you probably, looking back, you would have done differently. So for you, through this journey, which would you say you probably explored and you think you will have done differently, looking back now, and an advice to those who probably want to go on that journey to make sure they don't do it? Thank you.
One of the major things I think we got a bit wrong was our assumption of the mobile first approach. So we assumed by totally moving onto our platform, everyone amongst the users will embrace it. But along the line, we realized that there's a huge skills gap with respect to both the users in the field and also our own frontline officers. Secondly, we had issues with validation. Our QR code, we are unable to validate when you're in rural areas due to connectivity issues. And then we also had issues with downtime from some service providers. Then when it comes to operational issues, I will say we had issues with centralizing a lot of our support and technical assistance, especially to MDAs. So based on that, some of the user groups, we had to operate a kind of hybrid system where we go to the MDAs or to the location and open offices and put in trained officers from the service that will handle such transactions.
Thank you very much. Please let's appreciate Madam Aisha. I'm sure we can do better than that. It's not ever an easy journey. I hear you that there are your colleagues who have been in this journey, and it's been tough. So it's interesting to see how much you've achieved, and we wish you all the best. Stay on course, and we hope the next time we speak, we will not be talking 50%, but 80%. With the support of your ICT ministry and also your colleagues who I see have been collaborating with all of you, and I think that's something to also applaud. Just over to the Executive Chairman, Bayelsa State. I would like you to, there's an interesting conversation about integration. Even for NIN, we know how the headache has been, even for a lot of IRS, about some challenges and all. I'm sure everybody's wondering, okay, you are integrating with NIN, and it's able to auto-link and all of those things. How was the process? How was that relationship consummated? And I'll put it straight, did you get it free? And how have you sustained? What's the sustainability you see in that? And are there other data sources? So I started with NIN and wanted to hear how you went about it. Maybe there's a strategy you used in yours that others can learn and use to get their own done. But also, what are the other data sources to support your compliance process that you're also using for a digital system to work as it is? So starting with NIN, and then if there are other data sources you're using or you're connecting with by API. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Daniel Enyekezimene. Yeah, talking about integration, the NIM, without NIM, like you rightly pointed out, there will be no verification. How do we know that this person is actually existing? In Bayelsa State, what we have is many thanks to my ICT head, Because the moment I took over, I told him, you have to dream. Dream. Passion. Translate it into dreams and think of how we can get people into the tax net. My trust, or my arrow point, is in trust. Building confidence in the taxpayer. Because you need people to comply willingly on their own. For them to do that, they need to trust you. So, we started with going to the radio house, making a lot of noise about the need for everybody to pay tax. But how do they trust you? What has been happening? In the past 20-something years, we've been running between 1 billion and it's been terrible. So how do you overnight convert these persons to trust you? And then we said, we need a BIN, Bayelsa Identification Number,
Okay.
which is drawn from NIMS and CAC. For the private person, we use NIM. For the corporate organizations, we use CAC. And then we've been interfacing with the banks,
Okay.
pleading with them, please, as people come to do transactions at the bank, ask for BIN. Ask for BIN. We are not making it compulsory yet. We are going to get there. Encourage them.
But
It's very easy. It is self-servicing. You can just sit at the comfort of your
do
home to generate your BIN number. And we go beyond that to tell them, look, if you pay your tax, I assure you at the end of the year you can generate a TCC for yourself, telling the world that you are a taxpayer.
So what was the journey, Chair, what was the journey, getting CAC on board and getting NIN on board? What was that journey for you? You as an executive, it's interesting to want to know, how did you go about it? How were you able to get NIMC on board, that integration, and CAC on board, that integration that you have?
Well, it is, of course, you know that it's not free. You do some correspondence,
Okay.
get approvals, do the necessary payments, and with consistency and pushing forward, you get it done.
Okay. Thank you very much. What I would just like to follow up on is what would you say? What would you say is your next point of functionality you're trying to achieve? You talked about dream. You are where you are now. You've heard the roadmap and possibilities that align. For you, what would probably be the immediate to medium-term focus in terms of leveraging the data, the massive data you are currently pulling, and how you see it working? Yeah.
Now, in Enugu State here, we said, our brother here said they are using a consultant and about how many thousand persons are on the street currently. In Bayelsa, we are doing something different. We have, massive unemployed youths, and we are engaging them. Bayelsa is a swamp, everybody knows. Go into the creeks, go into the swamps, get any company because companies these days don't even have signboards. Go do your own intelligence, get them out. Come, there will be a fee for you. There will be something for you from government. And I tell my principal, you don't get money without spending money. You use money to create money. So allow us some margin so that we can employ our youths and for gainful engagement.
Okay.
Today, our youths are like soldier ants in Bayelsa, on the creeks and the swamps of Bayelsa, looking for companies that are operating without registration, and they bring them on a daily basis. So there's no other magic we have done in Bayelsa, moving from 1.2 to 5 point something within 12 months. There's no magic. Just this.
Yes, and I believe there's a kind of reconciliation process to connect this with the data you also have on your digital system.
Yeah.
Given that these engagements you are describing are very much physical.
Very, very much
So there has to be an handshake between the physical processes you've mentioned, and that, again, going back to the conversation about avoiding duplication.
Of course.
Because at the end of the day, you want one single central database.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, sir. I'd like to go to Dr. Abdusalam. You worked on a study that looked at digitalization and subnational tax administration in Nigeria in 2022, which has very interesting findings. One key area that, and this is one of the major challenges between connecting so much investment you put into the digitalization process and the output you get. So you can have a beautiful system. I talked about not having the right human resource. And that doesn't just go to just IT skills, but also the skill to be able to take the data that is being generated and be able to use this to support what the enforcement, the compliance processes, the risk-based approach to compliance that you undertake. I would like to know, what was your findings as related to the strategic utilization of data from these various systems? Again, these systems, a lot of things we've discussed, they didn't just appear overnight. Some of them go back 4 years, some of them go back 3 years. These systems have evolved over the years. So for you, what were your findings around the data that was emanating for this and how the revenue authorities were using it efficiently or strategically?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Larry, for having me and everyone. So let me just make some clarification that I was associate professor of taxation at Federal University, Duse, when this study was undertaken, and it was funded by International Center for Tax and Development UK in 2002. So the findings we made in relation to strategic data utilization, let me just make a brief, like 5 of them. One, what you understand is that the data, we are not using that data. There is a lot of data. So at that level, at that time, most of the systems are not tax administration systems, they are just payment systems. The reason why I said they are just payment systems, because you can only find payments in the system without having corresponding assessments. So they are not tax administration systems, mostly are payment systems. So even though they are payment systems, but there are a lot of data there inside. But we are not using the data for analytics on the systems. What we mostly found is that the revenue authorities download the data, then analyze it using Excel to establish trends, patterns, to understand who are the late filers, who are the late payers, who are the early payers, who are the potential risks for non-compliance, but not on the actual system. It's just using Excel. That is one. Then number 2, you understand also there is even weak internal collaboration for data usage. For example, when there is audit case, then you can see moving a file from department to another, seeking for information on how to undertake the tax audit. Instead of, for example, query the system, search the data you need, then get the data from the system and conduct the tax audit from the system itself. Then also we also understand at that time that there is also weaker external collaborations, because we understand there are systems in the state, but they're in silos. Land, health, education, even justice for criminal charges. Also the tax authority, but they are in silos. So there is weak internal there is no integration at that time. But now we understand that there is a lot of integration going place, with most of the state going for central billing systems, the other payment system within the states. So also we understand that there is also weak data utilization from digital IDs. At the onboarding stage at that time, you can see that taxpayer will be asked to give about 5 different IDs. Maybe he will be asked for his NIN during onboarding. He will be asked for his BPN during onboarding. He can be asked for his his other IDs. But the data that is being used from those IDs is limited to biodata. Somebody may think that when I am asked for my BBN, somebody may query even my bank details. But however, it's not up to that. It's only within the biodata that they can be able to. Even that biodata is not coming, whatever Anda said was not coming from the BBN. It was coming from the NIN. So these are some of the issues that the data were not strategically being used at that time. But based on the ERA report being presented, we have seen that there are a lot of improvement from our findings in 2002.
Thank you very much. And that was deliberate. It's just to let you see, this was a study done in 2022. And we can already see, I mean, the blind can see, the deaf can hear, and we're all here, we can all see that the journey indeed has been rewarding. From 2022 to now, you can see the kind of innovations that have been also been spotlighted. Talking about even being able to, as part of the remote onboarding process, being able to capture your own face from the comfort of your home. If I'm not mistaken, immigration services just only started that about some months ago. Unfortunately, I do not have it open. So Zubeda, if you could please help do me the honors of reading the question out, and then we would, I would be able to speak with the audience about what. Okay, you have your phone. Thank you very much. Okay. So we have a question. Could you provide the contact number of someone at NIMSI who can assist with integration? I think without putting all of you on the spot, I believe all three of you are integrated with NIN. So whoever has this question should kindly please make sure you don't allow Bayelsa, Gombe, and Enugu to leave this all without you getting that. However, we can do our bit by connecting you with NIMSI. There was a NIMSI representative that was here yesterday. I think what we can do on our part is we can always avail you that contact. So whoever asks this question can please see any of my colleagues, Shino or myself, and we would extend this contact to you, and you can then reach them formally. There's also a question here about the brief outcome of this PLN should be communicated. We will definitely do this. Out of every meeting is a brief. Out of every PLN is a brief that is extended to the governors, which they are well briefed on. How much are you paying for data integration? Again, I think these are offline questions that we will be taking. So again, make sure Gombe, Bayelsa, and Enugu do not leave this all without you seeing them, because we can only provide you the contact. We do not know the dealings. So they will be in a better position to advise you on how to better collaborate. And just, again, this is where PLN comes in, and where speaking with your colleagues comes in. I'm sure that even beyond the three of you, and we've seen from the studies, there are quite a number of states who are already doing this integration. How can Gombe Executive Chairman describe the general reaction of taxpayers to digital move you undertook? So I think they want to know more about the user experience, madam. I mean, you talked about how you are now at 50%. Was there any major backlash? Was there any, and how did you deal with it? And what was the support you had? I mean, how did you get through this?
Okay, for Gombe, we had a change management program. So we sensitized the taxpayers initially, so telling them what we intended to do before enrolling our programs. Subsequently, what we did to build trust is to make sure that you receive an alert from the IRS after you make any payment. So that gives them the comfort that, oh, this time around, whatever taxes I'm paying is not going to some fake tax collectors, rather it's coming to the government. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. And as we promised, we'll be finishing right on time today. So please can we give every one of the panelists a round of applause as we step down to just take pictures. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, madam. Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much. Yes. Sorry, please. Vikram and Diganta. David. Bye, sir. David. And Zubaida.
Okay, good morning, everyone, once again. Thank you, Lanre, for your session. I think we're going to break now for 45 minutes. We'll be back here at 12:30. 12:35. So please, there's tea break at the back. We'll start at the back tables so that we don't cause any traffic at the back there. There's tea and refreshments at the back. Thank you. And I'd like to announce again, there's still some people that have not filled the reimbursement form. So maybe take this opportunity to do so. If you think you have and you're not sure, just confirm at the desk over there so that we can process everyone's reimbursements in time. If there are any missing gaps or anything, we won't be able to process anything without contacting you, which will make it take longer. So please see them at the desk there so that you're sure that all of your details have been captured. Thank you. for transformation in Nigerian states. I'm calling Olumide Balogun, who is the Director West Africa at Google.
Good afternoon, everyone. Are we all settled after the tea break? Fantastic. As she said, my name is Olumide Balogun, and I lead the Google business for West Africa, based out of Lagos. And it's a real privilege, I think, to be here to address, our esteemed heads of agencies and guests as well, and even colleagues in the room. So real privilege to be here. Particularly on a topic that I think is really important, especially in the times that we're in, I think right now, the crucial work of digital public infrastructure across our beloved state. I think we all understand that DPI is not just a buzzword. I understand that we've been on sessions from yesterday, talked about what DPI is a crucial piece and a foundational bedrock for what will be a thriving digital economy, improved public sector delivery as well, and really help enhance citizens' empowerment. Now, a lot has been said, very, I think well said, very in-depth. What I want to focus, I think, the next 15 minutes, which I think is my time here on, is I want to share how do we do private-public sector partnerships? Like, what are some of the prerequisites? Being someone who is from the private sector, a hyperscaler, how do we consider, what are some of the prerequisites that we look at as private companies, essentially, to have solid public-private partnerships? I feel like, our states have made, and I hear from the panel, some really commendable strides in implementing DPI. I think the scale and the complexity of the digital transformation ahead, it demands more than just government efforts. I think you will all agree with me that there's a need for very good, I see a round of applause right there. It's good, bro, you get a round of applause. I think it's good to acknowledge, it's good to get that acknowledgement, I think, from the audience. So I want to focus on 5 key prerequisites. So it's not going to be a long presentation. I actually have just this slide up, so don't worry. The goal and the purpose is, for you to just hear me out, hopefully take some notes, and see how you can implement that or include that into your strategy at a subnational level. If you're thinking about DPI and you're really looking at public-private sector partnership, what are some of the things that you should consider? So I said there are 5 prerequisites that I want to look at today. Number 1 is a clear and consistent policy and regulatory framework, right? So I think that is what is, those are some of the foundational requirements. As private sector, we really thrive in certainty. If there's going to be a partnership with public sector, there's a requirement for there to be certainty around policy and regulatory framework that's predictable, policies that govern DPI development and deployment. So how do we think about removing laws that are ambiguous, for example, and regulations around things like data protection, privacy, digital transactions, cybersecurity, very, very critical. I think there are great ongoing efforts by NITA to release draft technical standards for DPI, and states should consider, how they essentially work potentially with NITA. I know there was a healthy debate with midnight yesterday, I hear. But I think that that's something that can help us. So we think about how do we harmonize and make sure that there's no fragmentation. When you look at countries that have been able to deploy DPI very successfully and are seeing not just improve governance or transparency, efficiency, but they're also seeing a lot of cost savings. For example, you see that there's a harmonized regulation across those countries, and we think that's something that's very, very important. I think the other thing is just, enabling public-private sector legislation and frameworks. And these are frameworks that need to be specifically tailored to the nuance of digital infrastructure. I think there's already legislation that exists, but how do we make it tailored, to the rapid pace of technological change and the unique risk profiles that are involved there. So that's number one. Number two prerequisite is it's always important for us to have a defined use case and problem statement. So to go into a partnership or a PPP, we're thinking, what is the defined use case that we're looking to solve for? Private sector partners, are looking for, we're not looking for abstract projects. We're looking for clearly defined problems that their solutions can be addressed. And I think states, as we go through this journey, I think it's great for states to articulate specific use cases. So think about, what are some of the problems, large-scale problems that we want to solve, and we start with the low-hanging fruits, and we start building pilots. So for example, there's a few that I talk about here. Healthcare access. Through telemedicine platforms, for example. How do we streamline tax collection or financial? I think it was the representative from Enugu State was talking about financial inclusion. For underserved. Not just for people who are like in the more urban centers, but how do we really solve problems that touch rural environments? And I think it's important for us to have those use cases. Number two is under a defined use case is also something that we can really quantify what the impact is. And is that a problem? Okay, that we can quantify are we good? No, it's just one slide. I said it's just one slide, sorry. It's just one slide. So I hope that you can follow. I've got 5 prerequisites to share, and I'm on the second one. So how do we essentially think about things that have quantifiable, impact, and then, data-driven needs assessment. So we look at data and we say, okay, this is an area that there is a real need, and we're able to, do some research and quantify. And I'm great to see some of the research work that has been done. I think those are some of the things that we need to bring, to bear to have solid PPPs. The third thing is really, and I think this is very important, is a robust digital infrastructure backbone. Is the third prerequisite. So we all say that connectivity is king. And while DPI is more than just the internet, it is a fundamental prerequisite for any meaningful digital partnerships. So it's how do you think about, at a state level, at a subnational level, is how do we get last mile, how do we solve the problem of last mile, especially as I talked about already in rural and underserved areas. How do we address issues like right-of-way charges and multiple taxations on telecom infrastructure to help power the digital economy so that we can really make DPI work for our people. I think the third prerequisite, that I think private entities are looking at when they consider partnerships at a subnational or at any level for that matter, but for the purpose of this conversation at subnational, is strong governance and institutional capacity. So dedicated DPI leadership. So when you think about at a subnational, is there a team that is focused on driving DPI and is not thinking about DPI as an IT project, but is really thinking about DPI as a strategy? Something that is much deeper than a tactical, but at a strategic level. A team that possesses, both technical expertise and the administrative acumen to manage complex PPPs. We think that robust monitoring and evaluation mechanisms, with clear contractual agreements and a commitment to anti-corruption practices are vital for building a trust. I think under that as well, one of the things that's critically important is the workforce development and talent pool. So while the private sector brings its expertise, the state also needs to have a sufficient pool of civil servants who have the capacity and can effectively manage, utilize, and oversee DPI projects. So investments in upskilling and reskilling programs for the workforce is a crucial prerequisite, I think, to have successful partnership. Finally, I said there were 5, and this is the 5th one that I want to share, is sustainable funding models and incentives is also very important. So beyond budgetary allocations, I think when we have to think about innovative funding models, for example, including co-financing agreements, performance-based payments that attract investors really, to help support the efforts of the government, I think, for that particular use case. I think attractive incentives are also important. So beyond the inherent business opportunities, states can attract private sector partners through various incentives, as well at a subnational level. I want to wrap up, and I hope that you found that useful in terms of how you're thinking about your strategy for PPP. See, the way we think about it really is that the journey to a fully digital Nigeria, it's truly a collective one. And by proactively addressing some of these prerequisites, we believe that our states can transform into magnets for private sector innovation and investment in DPI. So it isn't just about us, building technology. It's about building a future where every citizen benefits from efficient services, economic opportunities within their states, and a more connected society. So we really, want to encourage that we continue to collaborate and learn from each other as we forge strong and enduring partnerships that will truly accelerate our digital transformation journey at our state level. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll be at the back if you want to have an in-depth conversation. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much to Olumide Balogun for that presentation. Before I call up the next speaker, I'd just like to remind us all about the QR codes on the tables for us to register our attendance. If you're having trouble accessing it, please reach out to the people at the desk and they'll help you. Thank you very much. Giving the next presentation on DPI in action, AgriStack in India, journey and how it can be adopted for Nigeria, I invite Ritesh and Vikram from MSc. If this doesn't
Yeah. Thank you. So, between the lunch and you, it's just two of us standing. So please bear us for another 30 seconds. Oh, sorry, 30 minutes. So before I start and get into the presentation, I would just like to thank the NGF team here to invite us and talk about some real use of DPI back in India on agriculture. And yesterday, I would like to draw, some insights from the DPI presentation that my colleague Anshul gave. You would remember he was talking about, using these DPIs or digital IDs in, use cases for deduplication, to achieve efficiencies in program implementation and identify, fake and duplicate beneficiaries. So I would just give you a highlight of two sort of the largest programs back in India on food and fertilizer. So the food subsidy program back in India is, we have around, 200 million ration cards or households who avail this subsidy. Through the use of DPI, the government of India could identify around 50 million, so roughly 25% of those households were, fake or ghost beneficiaries who were receiving those benefits back in India. And similarly for the fertilizer subsidy, the government could save, in the tunes of like for a program which is roughly around $25 billion, could save around 10 billions over the years through the use of DPI. So this is the potential that DPI has. And then when you save this money, like the previous presenter was talking about, you can reroute this subsidy to increase the coverage of some of these government programs. So like in India, the government from these savings could literally double the food subsidy benefit during the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is just to highlight, how the use of DPI can enable government efficiencies, save cost, and, probably reroute these subsidies to target more beneficiaries. So now I'll just talk about the DPI in agriculture. So if I have to draw some similarities, say between India and Nigeria, and mostly across some of these developing countries, it's mostly similar. The only difference is the scale at which probably India operates, which is like 120 million farmers. But if you look at some of the similarities, which are like in most of these countries, the GDP, the agriculture would contribute around 20% to the GDP. The yields would be on the lower side. So for example, paddy, it's somewhere around 3 tons per hectare in Nigeria. In India, it's also the same. And more than like 85% of the farmers are small holder farmers, which own, say, less than 2 hectares of land. So these are the similarities, and that's why we thought probably AgriStack or DPI for agriculture, which we call as AgriStack, could be a good example to explain and how it could sort of enable some of the challenges that the government, the country as Nigeria as a country is facing in agriculture, especially for the small and marginal farmers. So having, detail out some of these issues which are there, and which is primarily because the farm size is so small, so targeting becomes very difficult. So ultimately it's probably boiled down to 2-3 questions which if you can answer, a lot of these challenges we would probably be able to resolve. And these 3 sort of broad questions are, how do we define a farmer, right? If we can identify the farmer and then tag the land which the farmer has, how much land that farmer has, and also identify the third question, which is which crop in a particular season that farmer is growing. So these sort of are the 3 questions that if you could answer would probably resolve a lot of issues that these smallholder farmers are facing in agriculture. So having said that, so if you look at the sort of how the agriculture sector works in, given there are so many small and marginal farmers, and there is no single database or a single registry for a farmer to target those benefits to farmers. So what happens is the same farmer which probably would avail multiple benefits on agriculture would have to go to through multiple channels for different schemes that are meant for farmers through agriculture only. So that's creates sort of a hassle for him to go to every sort of scheme separately, and it also burdens a lot of cost on the government to manage the same farmer multiple times for different programs. And then if you don't know how much land the farmer has and how much sort of and what crop the farmer is growing, we probably never be able to advise the farmer very on like the sorts of, for example, the customized advisory. We will not be able to provide that unless we know the land size and the crop that the farmer is growing. So that's what basically the AgriStack in India answers. So what it does is basically answers who the farmer is. For us, basically the farmer who, the individual who owns an agricultural land as a farmer. Obviously there are questions around tenant or sharecroppers or other farmers, but basically who owns a land as a farmer. Then with the help of geo-referencing some of these land records, which are again digitized, we can identify a farmer and how much land entitlement does the farmer has. And also basis on a crop survey, which happens like every cropping season, we can see what crop a farmer is growing or plans to grow. So basis on this, if we can think of what sort of impact can be made. So think from a farmer's perspective, he can be provided access to the agriculture inputs, access to credit and access to market, because we know who the farmer is, what crop he is going. And then accordingly for these three, the input, the credit and the market access, we can provide advisories also. Then think from the government's perspective, where government will have an overview of the whole agricultural landscape ecosystem in the country. And then basis on that, if they, for example, have to decide on procuring some of these crops, so for example, paddy, so they would know which sort of region or the states are growing some of these crops. So that becomes very easy for the government to plan, provide budget and sort of, manage the expenditure. Then I will quickly move to why basically we are calling AgriStack as a DPI. So here we have just given an example of the national ID DPI that we have, which is called Aadhaar, and then the AgriStack. So the national ID basically is a database of residents for us, whereas AgriStack is a database of farmers. Again, the number, the Aadhaar number, the national ID number and the farmer ID number are unique. And like the national ID in India and also in Nigeria, the national ID contains its biometric and demographic information for a resident. The AgriStack contains the farmer land details, and with georeferencing it, you make it unique. Like you have unique biometrics for your national IDs. The georeferencing makes it very unique for individual farmers. And then there are data sharing protocols within those. So again, having said all of this, the agriculture in India is a state subject. So in India we have around 36 states. What that means is mostly the program design, the implementation of it, the management of all those programs, and to also a larger extent the policies which are being designed and driven are done by the states itself. So that's why all these states have their own farmer registries, and there this comes the Unified Farmer Services interface, which basically integrates that at a federal level. That's why we are calling it a federated platform, where states have their own registries, but it's just sort of integrated at the national level and provided with a unique farmer ID. So this basically the AgriStack is. So digital ID for a farmer, georeference and tag to the land the farmer owns, and it's unique. So for a farmer, you would be able to identify all the parcels of land that the farmer possesses across the country, and then the crops grown over, through the crop survey. So basically, this all boils down to 3 farmer registries under the AgriStack, which is the farmer registry, the crop zone registry, and the second one is the village geomapped land parcels. So now I would like to invite my colleague Vikram to detail a bit on how the AgriStack works.
Thank you, Ritesh. So before I start or go further, I'd just like to reiterate and say that what do we mean exactly by AgriStack? Okay, so the focus on DPI or globally and like in India and everywhere else has been you get those ID, payment and data exchange and then fuse it with the financial system or with the tax system. But what if it can expand it to other sectors too? So we did it very well with the payments and financial inclusion part in India. We followed it up with during COVID with the health stack, and then came the idea, why not solve it use it for the agriculture sector as well? Okay, so like my colleague explained, if you go by, I would say like across the developing world, I think 3 core issues that plague everyone is nobody knows exactly who their farmer is. Okay, every country, every state has a digital farmer registry, but you don't know it in real time. What might happen is that somebody would have the land today, he would sell it tomorrow. Okay, and as revenue authority, it even complicates your job even further because you need to be in sync or you need to get some data from another entity to verify and validate and levy taxes or like how you want to proceed on it, depending upon which country and state we are in. Second, even if you know who the farmer is, you don't know what crop is he growing on, or if he is growing that crop, whom is he selling it to? Okay. Now that also becomes an issue like for everybody from the government and from the revenue authorities. And thus what it does is it moves us, or it has been historically been doing is we have been using historical data for planning and for supporting, or I would say levying taxes on farmers. Okay. Now that's a big discrepancy in the system. Why? Because you don't know how the structure or how everything is moving. You're depending upon your economics department to give you estimates so that you can plan and move and formulate strategies. But that's the very thing what AgriStack will solve for you. And like my colleague explained, AgriStack will have 3 databases at the state level. Okay, so I'm talking about like let's take it in context for Nigeria. So you have the federal government and you have the states. Okay, the states will have these 3 databases where they'll constantly keep on updating who the landowner or the farmer is, what crop they are growing, and on what extent of land that they're growing. So the first one, why we need a state farmer registry? Like there must be already digital systems, and I know within Nigeria there are multiple digital systems which talk about farmer registry. But the only gap when we evaluated them or we went through them quickly was, we understood was those systems are static. They're not mapped to your land or revenue records or land digital systems. People claim that, okay, this is my land, but can you electronically validate in real time? So for example, with your national ID and your tax ID synced, somebody can validate in real time in certain states, okay, so this is and so citizen. But can you do that for same for a farmer? No, that's not still possible. Okay. Second, what the farmer registry will do is, once you have it across all the states on the same data taxonomy, you have a unified database across the country, which recognizes me as a farmer in one state and me also farmer in if I have land in another one, so that I'll have the same ID and I don't need to have separate IDs across different states. So tomorrow, when the federal government is planning something, they'll be able to very clearly and very easily say that across 6 states, so XYZ has this land extent and this is what his holdings are. And this is cultivable, it's non-cultivable, you can classify as you want to go further. So that's about the farmer registry. And if we get this very, very clearly, so just imagine if you have a unified database across the country and the states having it, updating it very frequently as the land mutation happens, you can plan your fiscal policy very well, you can plan your tax policy very well, you can plan your inputs that you need to deliver to the states, and you don't need to over budget or have the deficiencies in the system. So that's about the state farmer registry. Now I'll move to the second one, that's the georeference land records. So even if you know, I would say that, so when, like supposedly Vikram has, in Lagos has 5 hectares of land. Very good, you know that, but that's just textual data. But what if, like a Google map, you could see land or geofence data where you say that 5 hectares of land across different villages, okay, and it all is geofenced, and in real time you can see what's the extent being changed, or what's being divided, or how many owners are there. Because sometimes it might happen, I might just not be the single owner, there might be multiple owners. To get that data, you need to have a georeferenced village map registry linked to the farmer registry. So what will be the benefits of it? Track changes in your patterns whenever your crop is being grown, whatever is being changed, the extent is being changed, the boundaries are being changed. If both the farmer registry and the georeferenced land registry are linked, you'll be able to track all of that. Second, facilitate accurate level of inputs or subsidies that need to be given to the farmers. For the biggest use case could be for the banks. For example, tomorrow, if I go to a bank and I say, I need a loan or a crop loan or agriculture loan for something, the bank is going to ask for certain documents. What if all this information could be transferred electronically to them? Your land extent along with your geofence data validated by a government authority, something like your National ID Commission or your NIN. So just imagine if you could do that. So in India, what we have done is we have achieved this. So we created the farmer registries, even though we had multiple farmer registries across the states, but we created a national farmer registry, or are in the process of creating it across different states. We have linked it to the georeference level maps across the length and breadth of the country, and linked it with the national ID. So supposedly, if I sit in Delhi, the central government knows that Vikram across 5 states has this land, and this is the extent, and this is like if I has 10 acres of land, and out of that 5 acres is cultivable and 3 is not, and 2 is irrigated. So they have all that, and it's all easily accessible across the states to the federal ministry. So the old system of planning on historical data has been left out or has been washed away with. Third, just imagine if you can combine these 2 databases, and if you can combine the third application on it. So you know who the farmer is, you know what his land extent is, and just imagine if you can or if you can record the crop data that is being sown on it. So that's why it brings me to my third registry called as crop sown registry. So what we have done in India is, and what we can do and replicate in Nigeria also is, supposedly I know my land, I know the farmer and the extent, a surveyor goes into that geofenced geolocked land. The mobile device only opens when he is or enables himself to track or put data into the application when he is standing in that level of plot. Okay, he clicks a picture of the so-and-so crop that he is growing. He mentions if there is an irrigation source or if there is a mechanized input or mechanized equipment available on the ground, and he loads that information. He does that over a 6 month. If it's like a paddy cycle, he'll do it twice in 3 months, like depending on how the state governments want. What that does is, that data, once verified and validated, is put into a central database. It's openly accessible to the banks and to the authorities, for the revenue authorities also. So what they do is, for example, the bank wants to give credit to a farmer. They exactly know what he is growing, what stage his crop is, and what all facilities out there. So that helps them plan, okay, this is the risk that the farmer is at, this is the loan that we need to him, and this is the time he can get it into his bank account. Second, for the revenue authorities also helps them plan. Eventually, the yield is going to be sold out into the market, and it's not going to be bought all by the government. It's going to go to the private sector also. So they are able to plan, okay, so supposedly this state, this is the extent, 100 hectares in Lagos, and they have grown the paddy. So it's going to come out as 10 million ton of yield, and this is the farmers, 100 farmers who are doing it. So they can plan how much estimate how much the tax they can collect from that region or from that district or from that state. So these are the 3 registries that we have done or created as part of AgriStack. So how is it being created? Now, this is very important even from the Nigerian context. Just like Nigeria, in India also, agriculture and land are 2 different subjects within the constitution. All right, agriculture is a concurrent and land is a state subject. Okay, so the states have the legal authority over the lands. That's what I'm trying to say out there. And they decide the guidelines, and they update the systems, and they do the division and mutation. They do all the transactions related to land, and they hold it in their data systems. So the states like when we started creating it, play an important part to it. But what we needed was a framework around which this whole data sharing or data or registry creation could be done. So how we did it is it's called through a framework called as India. That's called India Digital System for Ecosystem for Agriculture, which works on 4 broad categories. What we have taken into account is the ecosystem, how the thing or how the sector works, the architecture, the business domain, and the technology responsible for that. And we came up with certain standards, right? Like from a health stack, something called as FAIR. The health one had FHAIR. FAIR is Fast Agriculture Interoperability Resources. So basically, once the state create the 3 registries that I highlighted, you need to share it with the central government or the federal government. So to enable that, we enable these FAIR standards. Because usually what happens is, if you go by India, and I think it will be true for Nigeria also, is each state records data for farmers. They do it as per their own preferences or as per their own comfort, what they want goal or what objective they want to solve. But nobody is aligned or is on the same page, okay? You'll have certain fields like name and attributes, name, age and demographics and all that, but you won't have extent, ownership, mutation or records or crop records that being grown. So when you're sharing data to the federal government, you get a data set which is different for the different states and they are not able to talk to each other and it becomes very difficult for forming or formulating a policy. So that's why getting a fair standard or like a standardized approach for data sharing was very, very important. So that's the first step that the government took in. Second, this is the pictorial view of how the structure is. So just imagine the state 1, state 2, 3 could be one of the 36 states that are in Nigeria. You have a unified UFSI layer that we call as the Unified Farmer Service Interface. So how the layer works is all the states create these 3 foundational registries, and through the data attributes that are mentioned, the attributes are going to be same across all the states. They're going to share data with the central or the federal government. So the federal government won't hold any data. Like my colleague when Mary mentioned, it's a federated platform. What they do is you have a unique ID that will call the data from all the states and the federal government will just use it for the use case or for the policy they are formulating. But they'll never store the data and the data ownership will lie with the states only. So moving to the next one. Once this is created, now coming to the use cases of it. So supposedly you have a central database or a farmer database at the center. You have these 3 registries from the farmer, the crop, and the geo-reference registry, and all the states have it. Just imagine in Nigeria, all 36 have it, and you're sending this data up to the federal government or even within your state governments. Now just imagine if you could link it across to different data sets or data registries that are already available with you. And all of them are seeded with your national ID. Supposedly you have a fertilizer database. Supposedly you have a credit database. So the bank will just call the data from these 3 data sets and fuse it or merge it with the banking or the, I would say, risk assessment profile that they've created for all the farmers. The central government can call it for their input subsidy programs like fertilizer and see, okay, this is the input that we want to give to our farmers, and they'll be able to exactly target and give the output or deliver the inputs to the farmers without, I would say, guessing or doing guesstimation on how much needs to be supplied to different parts of the country. So this is what we're planning in India right now. So we have created those 3 foundational registries. We're planning to merge it across all these 22. And the best part is that once we do this, we plan to open this data up to the private sector so that they can also consume and plan their operations and how they want to reach out to the farmers. Because right now, I always say, for every agtech that's working in this space, their biggest strength is the database. Okay. Initially, it used to be their network channels, but now it's the database. So you control the database, you control everything. But just imagine a scenario where the data related to agriculture is federated and is open for everybody to consume. All right, and linked with all the registries that are data sets that you have with the banking, the tax, and the fertilizer, anything you can imagine. Just imagine the use cases that you'll have. So this is what we have achieved, and some of the registries were already in place in India. So the fertilizer one came before. AgriStack is just now following up, and we're planning to use it to deliver fertilizer subsidy. We're using it for the Government of India's procurement program. So multiple use cases that we are thinking within the country. So this is a kind of an output or sample profile that we had imagined when we were helping design the Government of India this project. Like if you can see very clearly, personal details, that'll have your farmer's name, his national ID, his land. If you see the plots, that's his geo-referenced data, like where the plots are, what land he owns, the crop that he's growing, what's the status of his soil health, and what is the benefits that he's availing from the government. Is he getting a credit subsidy? Is it getting some input? So this is what we had envisaged, and I'll show you what the system looks like right now. This is an output from the data system that's live right now. So if you can see, now they call it as the golden record. This is the digital verified data coming out from the AgriStack system. So if you see the Aadhaar number is the national ID number, farmer ID is his unique farmer ID issued by the system. You can see his plot details. You see his village name. Survey number means the plot of land that he owns, the extent, the farmland, what crop is he growing, and what type is he growing. If you go into the crop details, you can see agricultural land, he's growing paddy, and the paddies are at seed stage only right now. So you can track all this through a verified database now in India. So how it can be adopted in Nigeria? Well, I've just taken the liberty that I've understood that you have 3-4 databases that are already established out there. All right, you have your NIRSAL farmer database, 5,70,000 around, I would say 5 million farmers that have been there. Target is to reach 8 million. A farmer register, there is a pilot phase. So you have multiple databases. All of them have some or some similar or some different attributes. You are at least storing the personal identification number, their biometrics, the plot size, the crop, agronomic details, and everything. But my idea, what I say is to create is, and what we can adopt is, that why do have so many multiple databases? Because once again, if you're going to create multiple one after the other, you'll come back to the same problem, because not all databases are talking to each other. What if you could aggregate all the databases, link it with your national ID, and link it with the plot or the lands that they own across the states? Once that is done, you'll have a unified database, not only at the state, but at the federal level also. And if you are able to geotag the application that I just showed it to you, you'll be able to explore all those use cases. It'll take some time. It's a very organic way of doing it, but it'll solve the problem once and for all. So, and the benefits, I think I've already mentioned, but some of them could be, initial would be that the government subsidy programs will become very easy to deliver. The second one that will immediately follow is the credit use case or the insurance use case. You'll move away from a weather and a parametric insurance to a precise insurance for farmers, where you have the details of his crop, his land, and his soil and everything, and you can give him, the premium can be calculated as per the requirement or as per what he's doing on the ground. So this is what we wanted to present on AgriStack, and we hope we'll be able to do it, because the impact once we do it would be phenomenal. So this is just highlighting what's the use cases that are being adopted across the country. And if you can see the use cases, we are doing something in advisory, we plan to do something in finance, crop management, government expenditure. So from warehousing to logistics to credit to inputs, everything can be covered, and it'll go just the same way, the way we have done or taken up the payments use cases across the country. So this is again just highlighting like what all use cases that are out there. If you can see on the top, easier access to finance. Those are some of the payment bridges and the payment organizations that are already working on it. Some are on advisory, some on access to high inputs. So all of this is live, and if you like, some of you want to visit, you can visit the government's website in India and see like the use cases and how they're being approached. The benefits I've already talked, so I won't repeat, and that's it from my side on AgriStack. If anybody has any questions.
Do we have any questions? Okay, we have one.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I have just one quick question. Sorry, just two questions. The first one is it an open source solution? And then the second question is, how can a state look forward to partnership to exploring this solution that you have. Thank you. Okay. The first question I asked is it an open source solution? That's the first question. Then the second question is ways states can partner with you in deploying this in our states. So a quick one, I'm Musa Bello, Special Assistant to the Governor of Kaduna State on Information Technology, and at the same time Overseer of Kaduna State Directorate of ICT. Thank you.
The answer to the first question, yes, it's completely an open source. All right, that was the first thing that we took into mind while we were defining the framework and the operability standards that I claimed as fair. Because I think one of the problems that we initially realized was that if you're not going to do it open source, we'll end up back at the same point where we started. Because India, every state had their own digital farmer registry. But none of those registries could relay it to the center or the federal government, or could interact between states also if there was some engagement. So open source, yes it is. Second part, how do we partner it? So we have designed the framework. We have the general, I would say, standard operating procedures on how we can proceed on it. And I think so we can have a detailed discussion on the same. So we have the whole structure, how we need to, for each registry, and what needs to be getting operationalized. And we are doing something similar in a state in India. We are building the platform. Now what? So if I think I didn't mention earlier was the 3 registries will be at the back end. All right, but you need a farmer-facing platform post that. So we have designed the back-end part for the state also, and we are in the process of defining the front-end part of it also. So we have a in-house firm, IT firm that works for us on this. So we'll be happy to partner on that. And the third question, that's it.
Do we have any more questions? Any more questions? Okay, fantastic. No? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we're coming to the end now. I know I promised that we'll try and be done by 2:30. Shino. So we'll take the closing remarks now by David Nabena.
Now you'll give the closing remarks. What I'll do is summarize our next steps. We've done a lot of work over the course of the last 2 days. We've launched 2 reports, and with that we've achieved 2 objectives. One, we know where states are on the DPI journey. 2, we've also shared the roadmap for implementing DPIs in all 36 states. But in terms of next steps, the role of the NGF and what we'll be doing for states. Can you put the slide on, please? We've put out just a couple. One is to disseminate the reports that we launched to all states, the DPI and IRA readiness tools, to the commissioners, to the heads of the ICT ministries, and the executive chairman of the IRS of states. You would receive a soft copy of those reports and a hard copy as well. The second would be, like most of you have talked about, developing high-level advocacy with governors. And you see that from the presentation, even just before mine, the application is across sectors. So revenue, health, agriculture, education, even security, like Zamfara mentioned yesterday. So we would be developing an advocacy strategy with the governors to drive action on DPI. The third, obviously, even as important for states, will be to develop and mobilize technical assistance. So either from the federal government, that will be of interest to Cross River states, to development partners, to private organizations dedicated specifically to DPI. We'll have to do some work around that. We would also develop an online repository where you would have access to validated DPI solutions, open source building blocks, just as been presented, and technical documentation. All of these resources we would share with the states. For ICT MDA specifically, we would support the establishment of a community of practice, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with our colleague, Shina. He will be driving that work. NGF would provide TA to that community, at least for the short term. So over the next 6 to 12 months, we'll be doing that work. For the ICT MDAs as well, we'll collaborate with federal agencies, NITA, NIMSI, Galaxy Backbone, and states, of course, to support the development of standardized technical blueprints and reference architectures for core DPI components. So for many of the issues that we've discussed today, and in line with the roadmaps detailed in the reports, we would do that work with federal agencies. And of course, the priority would be to use the DPI approach to integrate identity with service delivery. For the state's revenue authorities, we've been working with you over the last 8 years. So you've been taking our time already. We'll just prioritize 2 areas. One, we'll work with JTB, with NIDA and NIBS to provide assistance to your ICT units. Training and technical assistance programs for staff on optimizing your current digital platforms. And the last would be to highlight successful DPI initiatives by states. And I'm sure for some of you, you've been looking at the results and you're wondering why some states are at the top and you're in the middle and you're wondering what they're doing. So our job as part of that would be to highlight some of what they're doing and to also share those lessons with you so that you can easily replicate and transfer the knowledge across your states. If you have any feedback for us, you can always reach myself or Larry or Shina to follow up and provide. And for some states, if you want us to also have state-specific conversations, we can also arrange meetings to discuss your own roadmap and the actions from the reports that we've just launched. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody. It's been 2 days of extreme and interesting conversations. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for adding color, adding value, sharing your experiences, being as blunt as you can. Because again, the only way we can move forward is we telling ourselves the truth. We've now come to the end of the program, but I'd like to acknowledge all my colleagues. Can the entire secretariat behind please stand up? Please, all my colleagues, the NGF, the team, the media crew, everybody, please stand up. Can we appreciate them, please? Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Even the hotel staff, everyone who helped, thank you very much. They've all been working tirelessly to make sure your stay was good. Thank you. And to all our chairmen who are here, thank you for traveling all the way down and being the best participants as you've always been. And to also all our commissioners of ICT, special advisors, heads of directors and representative present. And also let me acknowledge also my own colleagues, David, Zubeida, Shino, Dr. Makabani, everyone, Basi. I mean, I can go on and on. They've worked tirelessly. I can't even tell you how many sleepless nights they put together to make this happen. This just shows our commitment to you and our commitment to want to see the state move forward. What we just asked for is feel free to reach us. Our doors are open, and we want to walk this journey with you and be able to celebrate with you at the end of it. So thank you. And to MSC and the entire MSC team, please stand up. There's some that didn't present, but they're here. They flew all the way in from India, from Kenya. Thank you very much. You've been working. It's been over a year. This journey has been over a year. Over a year. Thank you so much for making it down, for putting a lot of value into this. Thank you. Thank you. And to all for those who are not here, because putting this together, you nominated people that worked with us. And it will really be unfair of us not to also appreciate them. They might be watching live, and we just want to say a very big thank you to every representative of every state, either the Internal Revenue Service or the ICT, who worked with our team to fill those questionnaires, to follow up on evidences, to make this happen. With your support, we believe that the next iteration will even only be better, and hopefully we'll have been able to work with you to make improvements even before then. So thank you and God bless. May you have a safe journey back. Please, it doesn't end here. We have a dinner, a closing dinner, a gala dinner, where? The rooftop. You just use a lift to go all the way up. You can ask at the reception or any of the hotel staff. They'll direct you at 7 o'clock. Please, let's try and not do Nigerian time so that we can also all go to bed early. I'm sure some of you have flights very early in the morning. Some are also traveling by road. So, but we want you to have an enjoyable night. Please do join us. Let's unwind. They say, all work and no play makes. So please, let's relax, let's unbundle. Thank you very much and God bless.
trendybeats.com.
Must finish how we started and take the national anthem again, and I have to agree. So if that won't take too long, please can we have the national anthem, please? Okay, with that, God bless you all and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. See you all at lunch.
First of all, rest in peace, Virgin upload them. Still no drip on my clothes when I'm Louis V dripping. Don't like stress in my dome. Straight to the head when I'm 1942 sipping.